Our next presenter is here to talk about the future of how technology will impact travel and how it's always constantly changing. The one and only Dougal from Google, the head of industry of travel at Google, Dougal Mckenzie.
Good morning. We got this on, there we go. Good morning, everybody. How are we? Who are my friends here who were hungover this morning? Who are the ones who are hungover? Pop your hand up quickly. You're the ones, if you fall asleep, I don't feel embarrassed. I don't think it's personal. I carry on going, right? My name is Dougal, and I work for Google, which I get it out of the way quickly because it's embarrassing. People laugh. And if I don't get it out of the way quickly, people start to nudge their kind of colleague next to them halfway through and start to giggle. Aside from managing our New York-based travel business, I'm also a member of the board for the IGLTA Foundation, so it would be remiss of me not to make sure you're all having a good time so far, make sure that you are finding the content valuable, and of course make sure you've got a ticket to Voyage tonight. If you don't, you've still got time to get your glad rags ready and go, right? So I'm going to dive right into it. Aside from working for Google, I just love to travel. And so I want to talk to you today about the dramatic, substantial change that we're seeing, driven by technology, the impact that it is having on consumers and on consumers' travel behavior, and what companies need to do if they want to stay ahead and win in today's world. If that sounds okay, I'm going to leave about 5 minutes, maybe a little more at the end, for questions and answers, and we'll dive straight in. Sound good? Good. I've lost my clicker. That's going to help me, right? This is my husband, Paul, my little dog, Lachlan. I like to throw a photo in of Lachlan. It always gets people smiling. We moved to New York a year and 2 weeks ago. A little bit, about a year before that, we were riding our bikes around New York and we stopped and we looked at each other and said, this is where we want to come and live. So we moved here a year ago and I love it. But if you're wondering where the accent is from, because it's clearly not from New York, I spent 16 years prior to that living in Sydney, and before that, I'm a Kiwi, or I am a Kiwi, a New Zealander, if you don't know the Kiwi term, by birth. And I think it's the fact of growing up in New Zealand, the culture from being in such a far away, remote place, that traveling long distances is just in our DNA. And so I've always traveled and I love to do so, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. At Google, we answer more than 5 billion queries each and every day. More than 5 billion queries, many, many tens of thousands of queries every second. And of those travel queries, searches of the travel industry still remain one of our largest search for industries. And so what we believe is, because of the mass scale of searches that we receive and the intent that people show when they search, we see it as a barometer for the health of an industry. What you see on the screens, and I apologize that it's right out to the wide, you're not going to have to look at the screens too often. What you see on the screen at the moment, the map of the world, is the change in searches in the travel industry for 6-month periods year on year. Big numbers, green, are good. Take away from this, our industry is healthy and is buoyant. On average, over the last 6 months versus the year before, we've seen about a 10% increase in intent to travel in the industry. Interestingly, you can see it on the screen, you might note, interest or intent in LGBTQ related travel terms has grown about half the market, but our belief on this is simply that it's a normalizing of the industry and coming off a higher growth rather than anything to be concerned about on that. Make sense? I'm just going to grab this up. So look, here's the thing. The connected world we live in has made people more spontaneous, more sporadic than ever before. What we do now is we search when and where we want to. We look for things when and where we're motivated to, rather than when and where we're able to or when and where we're told to. And the big change that's made is we are more loyal to our need in the moment than to a given brand. But smart brands, successful brands, still have the ability to connect with their customers when they know who they are. We've seen a 300% increase in the last 2 years of YouTube videos by LGBT creators being shared. Huge growth of people who know their customer and make content for them. The change we are seeing, make no doubt, is exponential, and the change we are living through is dramatic. The first 3 industrial revolutions were spaced roughly 100 years apart. What we're living through at the moment is mini revolutions every couple of years. So in the 21st century already, we have seen global adoption of smartphones, global adoption of internet, and whether you know it or not, you've welcomed artificial intelligence into your lives. 2 years ago, there we go. 2 years ago, at our annual developers conference, it's in May each year, 2 years ago, our CEO, Sundar, said we are no longer mobile first, we're now artificial intelligence first. So if you're wondering what artificial intelligence is, we stop a moment, let's just talk about this, yeah? Artificial intelligence seems scary, it's not. It is simply the development of computer systems that have the ability to perform a task that was typically done by a human. The development of computer systems that can perform a task that was typically done by a human. This gives advent to the ability for smart machines to be made. Smart machines, things like a robot in a factory, it does a human's job, yeah? Following on from this, that gives advent, or gives the ability for us to have machine learning. Machine learning is the ability for a machine to learn from its mistakes and to get smarter over time. And it's machine learning at the heart of artificial intelligence that is causing exponential change in technology, not linear. And that exponential change is driving consumer behaviors and consumer expectations. So if you're wondering why now, let me tell you why this is all coming to a head now. The first thing is computing power. Computing power is greater than it's ever been. The smartphone that you have in your hand, in your pocket, some of you are on, yeah? The smartphone that you've got has got more computing power than the computer that NASA put into that room in Houston in the 1950s. Who's seen Hidden Figures? Do you remember the computer? Your smartphone has more power than that, right? In our quest to kind of control, or not control, but to house and to help on a lot of this computing power, Google has inadvertently become one of the largest producers of servers in the world. We don't sell them, simply to house our own data needs. The second one is vast, huge sources of anonymized data. Right? Data that comes from your phone, comes from your web browsing habits, comes from checkout tills and traffic lights, comes from everywhere, gives us the data we need for artificial intelligence. And then third is connectivity. Fast, seamless, quick connectivity. Anyone use voice search? I know, John, you've used voice search. You tried it with me this morning. It wasn't very successful, but we've tried it, yeah? People have tried voice search. That was really many, many years before it was launched, many years before it became publicly available. But the problem was this. Without fast, seamless connectivity, you ask it a question, you go and make a coffee, you come back and get the answer. It's a bad user experience, right? It needs to be quick. Now what we've got is we've got this, let's call it a petri dish, where all those elements have come together and things are exploding so quickly. We use machine learning at the heart of a couple of our products. I'll tell you before I move on to what I want you to do. The first thing is we use it in our product called Photos, Google Photos. So I search for dog, I get lots of photos of my lovely little fluff ball called Lachlan, yeah? There's no metadata, there's no tagging, it simply recognizes he's a dog. Or on the right, we have a product called Google Trips, and we understand what you've been searching for. We know the bookings you've got in your email and the things that are preferences to you in your journey. And then we take information that's publicly available and we craft you an itinerary that changes based dynamically on what you need and what's available. Those things come from artificial intelligence and they come from machine learning. Good? The last example I give you, machine learning is at the heart of our Translate product. So now you can hold your phone up over the top of any word and in 40 language instantly in real time, translate that through to where you are and what you need. I'm allergic to fish. You know? Now I know the word for fish in a number of languages when I travel, but I don't know the word for salmon, and I don't know the word for tuna, and every other iteration of fish. And so for me, when I'm anaphylactic, this is a wonderful thing to be able to do to hold up and understand. These are examples of that. But the thing is, consumers are becoming more curious, more demanding, and more impatient as technology becomes part of their lives. And they are punishing brands that ignore it and brands that leave it behind. couple of examples of this. Uber and Airbnb have done us a disservice. I'm not sure if Maria's here. I told her I would tell her this, say this, so she wouldn't get upset. Airbnb and Uber have done us a disservice, but what I mean is their sites are so good, the experience is so seamless, that this is the bar we expect on all our interactions with brands. People often say, oh, that's for car sharing, that's for ride sharing. It's not. This is the new bar of what people expect to receive. Keep that in mind. So what do you want to do? What do I think you should do as a result of this acceleration and the change in behavior we're seeing? Did that come up right? Oh, on my screen the BE is this way, on your screen it's this way. That's okay. I want you to do 4 things. I want you to think about 4 things. I want you to be assistive, be available, be smart, and be privacy safe. I'm going to talk you through those 4 things. For each of those, I want to make sure I leave you a little bit of a nugget of what I want you to take away and give you a few examples of companies that I think are doing a good job of this. Cool? First thing is be assistive. All right? People are expecting technology to assist them in ways that they never used to before. From a search standpoint, we've seen consumers start to shift in what they can do and what they expect from us. We've shifted from being able to understand words and sentences to being able to understand context and nuance in what people are asking for us. This in turn has risen to more expectation of this. There are 2 things that we are seeing in our data come through heavily that we know will drive change in 2019 around this expectation of assistance. The first is this increase in return visitation, return to people wanting to find out more about things over time. 2/3 of the searches we get now are return visits on important life decisions. Things like planning a vacation, people are coming back to us over and over again. One of the things that we've done as an example of how we're trying to help assist people on their journey, you search for something like, in this case, vacation to Miami. This was me. I went to Miami early February. I then went on a cruise from Miami. And what my phone knew is that I had a booking. It looked at that booking and it said, what can we do to help Dougal on his journey further? It offered me suggestions on things to do, weather averages, events that we're on, and of course we find that information from things that you make publicly available on your sites as we search them. The second thing that gives us rise to believe there will be this change and this continuation of this need for assistance is this: we've seen a 70% rise in the last 2 years of less than fully formed queries. People coming to us and saying, Google, we don't know quite what we want, and we want you to give us the answer. People saying things like, at 70% rise in, where is the best resort for me? Right? What is the best travel credit card for me? And they expect us to know and to give them that answer. So, what do I think you should do? Here's what I want you to do for assistance. Look at your consumers. Look at the consumer journey with your brands and understand the points of friction that they have in dealing with you. Look at those points of friction and work out how you can, through the data that you have, break those down in advance of them asking. I'm going to give you 2 examples of companies that are doing it well. One that's doing it high touch, high technology, high resourcing, to give you one end, and one company that's doing it much more grassroots, much lower key. Both of them are highly, highly effective. The first one is Bank of America. It took all the data points that it has. It looked through all of that and it understood the points of friction that its customer had and the things that were most valuable to them. And it created a chatbot that answers those. Highly successful for them in a staged state-by-state rollout across America. They had 1 million active users in the first 3 months. But that takes a lot of resources and it takes a lot of technology. At the other end of the spectrum, and I think you can identify with this even though it's an automotive, is Hyundai. They looked at the frustration points on their customer journey and they said it was transparent pricing, it was flexible test drives, it was finance, can't hold up 3 fingers at once, it was streamlined purchase and finance, and it was the fear of post-purchase dissonance. Those 4 things were causing frustration for their customers and a blockage in buying. So they broke those down, they answered those in advance, they rolled this out across the country. 600 of their dealers are active in this, 60% of new car buyers last year. quoted their shopper assurance program as a key decision to buy a Hyundai over another vehicle. So take that away with you, understand your customers' points of frustration, and think about how you can help and use technology to answer them first. The second one is you need to be available. You need to be available for them. So before we became artificial intelligence first, we were mobile first. Right? I remember when I joined Google, it was the year of mobile. It was the year of the mobile for about 8 years. It's still the year of the mobile. In 2009, we went mobile first. And you might say then, 2009, it doesn't seem that big. It was 2 years after iPhone had really started to gather a bit of steam. 2% of our queries were on mobile. Only 2% of our queries were on mobile. But we retrained all our engineers. We rejigged all our products and became product first on mobile. And we retrained all of our business folk on that as well. In fact, at the time, our CEO, Larry, the CEO at that time, made it very clear if an engineer or a product manager came in with an example of a new product on desktop, he or she could leave the room immediately. When they came back with mobile, then they could talk about the new product. Now, well north of half our searches are on mobile. Well north of half of searches are on mobile. Some industries, some countries, it's incredibly further north than that. You go into countries like in Indonesia as an example, it's vastly majority on a mobile device. You remember this from before? You may not remember the numbers. This is the same picture, but just for mobile searches in the travel industry. And if you can't remember the numbers from before, take one thing away. They're all much bigger, right? The green is darker, the numbers are bigger. Mobile will be and continue to be the point of entry into your brand. The thing is, a poor user experience, a slow mobile site, will cause 70% of consumers to bounce and go elsewhere, and over half of them to be left with a poor understanding or poor perception of your brand. A 1 second delay in load speed, a 1 second delay in load speed will equal a 20% drop in conversion or sale. That's how impatient we've become and how expected we are of a decent mobile site. My offer of help to you on that front is to go to Think with Google, use our tool. It is free. Put your site in. Not only will you understand the speed, which isn't that helpful in itself, but what you'll be able to get is a full report that gives you exactly what you need to do, lowest hanging fruit first, to fix your site. As we've started to see this shift into mobile, or as we saw the shift to mobile, what we've started to see is a shift from text to voice, and in due course to visual. As we've seen the shift to voice, more than a quarter of the searches that we get now on things that are near me, things like restaurant near me, or activities near me, or hotel near me, are on voice-related texts. But we're increasingly seeing the shift further to visual in, visual out. Let me give you an example. You can hold your phone up now in front of pretty much any building, any premise, any company, and the camera will understand what it's looking at and will give you the details on that. It'll give you the menu of the restaurant, the reviews of the activity, allow you to book or call immediately. Visual in, automatically. We gather that information from your My Business account and the location you're standing in. These are the sorts of things that people are thinking about, but I'll come back to what I want you to do in a moment. Companies that are doing a good job of thinking about visual in, visual out. American Airlines has started to include it to help people navigate their way through terminals using the camera on the front. KLM is making sure that your carry-on luggage will fit in the overhead lockers in the right way. What I want you to do, so let me go back a sec. What I want you to do is this. I want you to think about your mobile site. It will increasingly and continue to be the primary way that people touch your brand and interact with your company. Understand your mobile site at speed and make that your focus for being available. The third point that I want you to think about in how to win today's customer is the need to be smart and the need to use technology to develop your business. From an advertising, from a marketing standpoint, you can now tell a platform how much someone is worth to you for that sale. Let the technology create the ad, find the customer, and acquire them for you. And companies are doing this. Machine learning has gone from being this scary, hairy, ugly beast that was only available to the biggest of companies and is now available readily and cheaply from a cloud-based standpoint. Companies are starting to grab a hold of machine learning in this way. A good example I want to give you of that is a company called the Zoological School of London. They're a charitable business. They use machine learning to look at animals in the African wilderness, to identify them, not like it says here, they take it down to subspecies and down to sub-subspecies levels. They categorize the animals, they track the animals, and therefore they're able to focus on and manage preservation at scale. If machine learning is foreign to you and you're unsure really what it is and how it could help, I urge you to do one thing. Take the time to learn more. A great program, Udacity, U-D-A-C-I-T-Y, offers a free online program that will give you the basic understanding you need to know how it may or may not help your business. And the last one is this. From a privacy standpoint, the world has changed so dramatically in just the last 12 months. Right? The world we live in from a privacy standpoint is so dramatically different than it was. Governments, regions have started to make changes on what we can do with data. Europe went first with the GDPR, California with the CCPA, the list is starting to go on. They have changed one area. Secondly, browsers, web browsers are changing the collection of data and what is collected, Apple being the primary source of that in the change they made in the last couple of years. And then thirdly, to be honest, we as consumers are more wary of privacy and more wary of data usage than we've ever been before, and we're starting to make controls ourselves in what's used. So what you could do a year ago and what you can do now are very, very different. As a business, you need to know your privacy obligations. What you need to do is hold dear to you your first-party data. Get your first-party data, own it, be clear with your intentions to your customers, and that will become a source of gold for many, many businesses. But we still have a great ability to target contextually, to target through audiences. We bring those three things together, and the companies that use that with machine learning will win. I should have put that picture up. That would have helped me explain those 3 points, right? So here's what I want to do as I finish, before I take a couple of questions from you. There are 7 things that I want you to think about as we go away. One is the world is, the industry that we work in, the travel industry is buoyant. Right? There's a lot of opportunity in it. 2 is technology is and will continue to change the way consumers expect things from you like never before. 3 is your ability to assist people and the expectations of you to assist them are growing exponentially, and you need to think about points of friction in your journey. 4, mobile is and will continue to be the primary point of contact that you have with customers, and that must be your focus from a technology standpoint for seamlessness. What am I up to? 5, yeah? 5? Fifth is that machine learning is no longer scary. 5th is that machine learning is available to you and to everyone, and you must learn and understand it. It's not going to go away, and I can't slow it down. 6, and the last one, 6th one, is that privacy, as I said, has changed, and you need to know your obligations. 7th is there's a party called Voyage tonight, and you should have a good time at that. And I'm very happy to answer. Have I got some time? Oh, sheesh. I'm very happy to answer any questions I can, and hello, you. Yes, gentleman at the back.
Good morning. I'm Alan Beck, publisher of Fun Travel Guides. And being a senior, I've learned to move my business forward, and we're digital first rather than print first.
Good.
My question to you this morning is, in noticing your map, I saw 2 striking things. Number 1 is China, and Venezuela, and perhaps another South American
Yeah.
country seem to be missing from the Google advancing
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah, good point.
What is Google doing as a company to change that?
Mm.
And I'm going tonight to Voyage. I look forward to seeing you there.
So, good question. And I actually meant, when I showed up the map, I meant to call out a part of that at the least anyway. So look, there's 2 different answers to that question. The first thing is, look, quite honestly, we don't have the data in China. I meant to actually tell you the big red blob in the middle should be ignored in the sense that I don't have data. It's not red because it's declined, it's red because it's just flat. And you know this, most people know the story there. We don't have a presence in China. Many, many years ago, we had the opportunity to, but it required censorship. and we made the decision that that was not in line with our values as a company. So we are not present in China. Venezuela, and there are a couple of other countries. There's one in the middle of Africa as well. They are typically, and we've seen it change over the year, it's either due to political turmoil or economic instability or economic change. So for instance, that map 6 months prior actually had the United Kingdom in red. And that's clearly not political instability, although lately maybe it could be. But it's more so around just the economy and some of the changes around Brexit that are happening there. Those are the things that drive that, and we know this, right? When there's political instability, when there is inflation, these things impact travel often first. And so that's the change that you're seeing there. What are we doing to help that? We have the data. That map's not meant to show what we're doing or not doing to help in that area. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good.
I have a question regarding the ability that Google has in terms of aggregating so much data and predicting what we're going to be purchasing and buying. But within travel, specifically, the hotel companies, the airline companies are light years behind these types of analytics. Where do you see a company like Google and these major brands and airlines coming together so that they can actually, that hotel companies and brands and airlines can actually deliver that type of service?
So that's what I do most days, is work with suppliers to try and help them understand that opportunity. Because it's interesting, right? A lot of the intermediaries, your bookings, your Expedias, etc., they're a marketing company. So they focus on the technology side, websites and so forth. Like, that is their business. I've spent a lot of time mainly with airlines over the last 4, 5, 6 years. And of course, their job is flying metal tubes through the air. And marketing often comes a little bit second to that. I'm not saying they don't do a great job, but it's the secondary focus for them. So we spend a lot of our time helping those companies understand what they need to do to compete and to compete well.
Are you seeing progress in this area?
Yes.
I mean, because I think as consumers,
Yeah.
we're really, for us, we're not.
Mm.
You know, if you can stay at a hotel or you can book an airline, 20 times in the course of a year.
Yeah.
The first question will be, is this the first time you stayed with us?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of amazing. So I'm wondering when this gap is going to be closed.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, 2 points. It's funny. I was presenting to a large hotel, a large, close to DC-based hotel, recently, and I had a map of the mobile speed thing, for example. And you know what? Sitting at around 2 seconds for load time was Booking.com. Sitting at half a second was Trip.com, Ctrip's business, right? And that's a really interesting thing. They are absolutely the best in class for that sort of thing. Sitting at 20 seconds was this particular large hotel chain. 20 seconds. And if you think of the maths I showed you, 1 second equals a drop in 20%. And to be honest, actually for most of us, we just go away, right? We just go somewhere else. We're working with them to understand that. Are they accelerating? Are they improving? Yeah, they are. They get that point. They are improving on that point. Your business was not the 20-second one. Don't worry about that. Yours was much better than that. In fact, that rubs salt in the wound of the other one. So that's one piece on that. And then the, what was the other thing you asked me? Sorry. And the other piece is this. They have all realized that data is their gold mine that they are sitting on, right? They sit on, airlines and hotels sit on huge data pools. Unfortunately, they've had siloed organizations and they often don't use it properly. They are realizing the need to do that. Interestingly, as we move into this world of privacy safety, they're going to be in a good position because they have good, rich first-party data, but they don't always use it very well. I bang my head against the wall and we are getting there with them a lot of the time. This is their biggest opportunity, is exactly that. They should know exactly who you are and what you like. Some of them are doing a good job. I'm not saying just because you're in the front there, but Hilton is doing a better job of you can walk straight and go to your room without even going past the reception desk, right? Because of the app and because of the data they have, and the pillow you like will be on your bed, etc. A long way to go, but they're getting better. I did a lot of work with, funny, Air New Zealand calls itself now it's cliched, they borrowed it from Starbucks, but they say that they are a technology company that earns revenue from flying rather than the other way around. And they are a digitally first airline, and they are smart in what they do in that sort of area. Yeah. You can walk into the terminal, check in, go through to the lounge, and your coffee will be waiting when you get there because they know that you're coming from a movement standpoint. So there's some good things happening. Yeah. Oh, this is it. Okay, sorry. I'm going to hang around later on.
I've noticed recently that the
We're seeing it a lot. Well, we're not seeing it a lot. We're seeing it a bit. And we're seeing them pull out of some of the aggregation process. Although if you read an article the other day, you'd see that, for example, Marriott just signed a new deal with Expedia. So there was talk they were going to pull out. They did the opposite. They've kind of gone deeper, if anything. Different terms, of course, but they've gone deeper. We're seeing some of the suppliers pull out of the meta aggregation business, more so, as that changes value and what does that bring them, particularly some of the smaller hotel chains. Look, it changes a few things. I mean, it changes our business too, right? If you know the way a search model works, the less depth of an auction, the cheaper it becomes. And so the less people that play in it can change that as well. Look, it will continue to change. I think the answer to your question is people will be where they see value, and those companies need to provide more value. And that's a combination of the value they add and the cost they charge, and that's part of the reason Marriott changed its business model with Expedia recently. I think those things will just change and evolutionise over time. Hey, very quickly before I leave, the one question I didn't get asked, but I'm going to answer it anyway, because I know it plays on some people's minds. You cannot target LGBTQ community on Google. Right? We do not allow you to target the LGBTQ community on Google. People say, why not? It's very simple, and so I want to give you that answer. You can target in many ways. You can target keywords. Someone searches gay holiday, you can find them on that, right? You can target them contextually if they're on a gay website. You can put an ad on that, but you can't target them otherwise, and it's simple. It is privacy, right? We are very cognizant of the things that people search for. They have not declared themselves publicly as being LGBTQ necessarily, and what we don't want to be is the vehicle that helps out people in countries where it might be illegal or in companies where it might be frowned upon. So what you don't want to do is search for something in your spare time and then be sitting there in a meeting and find ads come up on our community and find that suddenly you've lost your job or you've become illegal, you've done something illegal in your country. So that's the reason we don't. We maintain an incredibly high bar on sexual orientation and sexual preference. Wow. Yeah. We don't allow you to target on position. We do the same on political affiliation as well and a few other things. So it's not defined to this category only. It's anything that is a protected category that is not our job to be the one that is outing someone or doing that sort of thing. So I hope that makes sense. Happy to answer more questions on that topic because I know it plays on people's mind a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dougal from Google.